Okay, I want to welcome everyone to our Wednesday training and for the local chamber influencers and for others who will be watching this very, very shortly, because this is all about a program that we have seen in the past in our group and in other areas. And actually, we have several people that are very interested in becoming a, a group leader, if you will, or a thought leader in their community through a program called 3,000,000%, which was created by our guest, Tim Nichols, and which I encourage all of our people to take a very close look at, because it will allow them not only to train people in the area of relationship management, but it's much deeper than that. It goes into exactly what you need to do to get the most from your local chamber of commerce and from your local community business activities. So with that being said, I want to introduce Tim Nichols and want him to kind of go through the area of how, a little introduction about the program, of course, but more so how you can participate personally and become a 3,000% leader. All right, Tim, thank you for coming on board. We appreciate it today.
Thanks, Chris. And might I add, as you can see over my head, it's 3,000,000%, not
I think
3,000.
I think I said 3 million, didn't I? If I didn't, I apologize. I
That's all right.
made
That's
that
all right.
mistake before. 3,000,000%.
So what that even means for your listeners that may not be familiar, for 17 years, I was a financial advisor. And in 2012, I actually went independent as a financial advisor. So I gave up the big names of the banks and brokerage firms. But when I did that, I also moved to a town where I didn't know a single person. And not only was it challenging to go independent, it was even more challenging to move to a town where you didn't know anyone and do that. I wouldn't recommend it, but I did it and I knew I could do it. So within 12 months of moving to that town, I actually grew my practice by 3,000,000% using a process that I had just developed through experience of deepening relationships quickly, elevating my profile within the community, leveraging networks, building credibility, and establishing community. I held myself accountable to those 5 things every day and was able to grow significantly. Now, 3,000,000% was not necessarily a fluke. Within year 2, I grew by 100% and had the city come to me to manage their retirement plan. Year also, I built a built a partnership with a local bank who saw what I was doing. So we actually multiplied growth that way. And then year 3, I grew by 50%, year 4, 25%, and then so on and so forth. In year 7, I actually sold my practice to a local bank because 3,000,000% had grown so much, the program had grown so much that I had to make a decision as to whether to keep practicing as a financial advisor or to pursue 3,000,000% and continue to help businesses grow. So I sold my practice in April of 2019, and here we are now. I'm happy to report that just yesterday I made a social media post where here in my local Chamber of Commerce, Rockwall Area Chamber of Commerce, 9 out of the 11 local businesses that were up for Emerging Business of the Year and Small Business of the Year, 9 of those are 3,000,000%ers. And on top of that, we have several that have made it onto the Rockwall Board of Directors. We have several of our 3,000,000%ers that have gone on to board positions now in other communities. So this is spread organically, and now it's spread somewhat nationally, and is growing really fast. But it is a replicable process that you can implement in your communities. And what we're looking for are local businesses that would like to create influence within their communities and within their markets. And those are the ones that we want to serve as growth group leaders. So those people who are now nominated for awards, those are that have been through the program and they've learned how to execute it very well. So that's what we're trying to educate and implement within these communities. As far as how this goes, the growth group, let me give you a brief synopsis of structure. So these growth groups meet for 6 meetings per semester, if you will, or 6 meetings per cycle. That we found that the most optimum meeting frequency is every other week, and the most optimum meeting time has been 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And they meet in person every other week. The meeting is a 2-hour meeting, so out of 120 minutes, you've got 10-minute open, 10-minute summary, but 100 minutes to divide among the 10 businesses that are in each group. So we have 10 businesses per group, and they are industry diverse per group. So you would not have 2 financial advisors in a group. You would not have 2 insurance agents or anything like that. Not even 2 real estate agents. Those that are the most that have the most demand to get into the groups have been the financial advisors, the insurance agents, people along those lines, and real estate agents who are relationship. They count on relationship marketing for their business.
Tim, if I could interrupt, why not have more than one industry at a time in the group? What's your experience there?
Well, they're actually trying to do several things. Not only are they learning the process, but they're helping each other implement the process. So they are deepening relationships in there. What we do is we infuse a mastermind concept of sharing hard truth in these groups. And sometimes that involves revealing challenges that you're having in the local community, revealing maybe some frustrations that you're having with the chamber or with other businesses, maybe even within your market. And so we don't want competitors in there hearing these challenges that the other business may be facing. On top of that, there is somewhat of a referral aspect. This whole program is based on a Zig Ziglar quote: you can have everything in life you want if you help enough other people get what they want in life. Now, through Chambers of Commerce, we all want to grow. That's the one big thing that we have in common. And we're trying to help one another grow in each growth group. Now, going back to what you're asking, Chris, we want it industry diverse within each group, because I may know someone who could use your service, and I'm going to try to help you grow within that time frame that we have. So you've got this 6 meeting cycle. The idea is to rotate groups at the end of the 6 meetings. So you should be recruiting a new group as you're going through one cycle, and you're trying to recruit a new group to start at the beginning of the next 3-month cycle. But you're trying to train your members to do that too, because that deepens relationships, that elevates your profile, that leverages networks, that builds credibility, establishes community. You're trying to replicate that process over and over again with a new set of 9 businesses.
Now,
every 3 months.
Does that mean that there has to be 10 people involved, or can you have 6 or 7 or 8, or what's the advantage to that number 10?
Oh, the advantage to the number 10 is the 80-20 rule. So if you had, you're going to have about at least 20% start falling off, but a lot of times it's 20% of the people doing the work anyway. But we want it to where if people aren't coming, if they stop coming for some reason, a lot of times, like with real estate agents, they might have to show houses that day. They may have closings that day, something like that. It allows for there still to be for lack of a better word, a quorum within the group. So we've done it. I've actually got a health industry only growth group meeting right now. In fact, they had their meeting Tuesday. Their second meeting was Tuesday. They are led by a 25-year-old dentist, and in that group is a 40-year-old orthopedic surgeon, a physical therapist, a chiropractor, and a lymphatics nurse, someone who has a lymphatics business. So you've got 5 in that group. Now, that is a fantastic group, and they're going to be fantastic resources for one another for referrals too. Although this isn't a referral group and it's not a networking group, but you naturally will try to do that to help each other grow within each cycle. Now, the surgeon and the dentist were in the same group last semester, and they came together and said, hey, let's try a medical industry only group, and that's worked pretty well. But due to their schedules, they actually, Chris, you'll appreciate this, they had to go to a virtual only growth group because they have a 12-to-1 schedule where they are not seeing patients, right? So they couldn't even do the 2 hours, but it was a 5-person group. So if one of them misses, though, you're missing 20% of the group.
So in that case, by going virtual, how do they do that?
By Zoom. They use Zoom calls.
Okay. All right.
And they do it from their offices. So they're all located in the same community. But to save on drive time, they decided to go Zoom and do it that way. And from what I hear, it's going fantastically well.
Well, that oftentimes is a question when I bring this up is, do I have to go ahead and do a local group situation, or can I expand my reach into other communities on a virtual basis? What have you had any experience with that? I know that you have discussed it before, and I know it's possible, but what's happening in that area?
Well, it's training leaders. It's going to be pretty easy to do a virtual group, right? But there's an extra depth that you go into when you can make it face to face. So for someone in a local community, they can actually, it's bigger than just going to this group meeting, right? So like, let's say in a situation in a local chamber of commerce, you want it to where you've got the 2-hour growth group meeting, but you're trying to schedule one-on-one appointments with each other outside of that meeting so you can continue to deepen relationships. I mean, you're basically continuing the process of deepening relationships, elevating your profile, leveraging networks, all of that. But I teach them to move as a team, right? So what it really does is help with introverts or small businesses or businesses that are new to the community, or some businesses feel like that maybe only corporate sponsors go to luncheons or something like that. It's too corporate-y for them. But what happens if they move as a team and they all start going to ribbon cuttings together, they all start going to luncheons together, or happy hour events or anything like that, they can actually implement the process within that meeting with one another. So let's say you've got a group of 10 and you've got 5 introverts out of that group, but 5 of them are people who are already connected. So you'd want to say, all right, if you're scared to go to this luncheon, come there and meet me. Find me first, and then we will help you plug in. So what happens is the ones that are more connected out of that group, they start connecting the introverts to other people, so it doesn't put so much pressure on the introverts to try to meet with other new businesses that may be sources of new business for them.
Okay, if I say yes, I'd like to be a group leader and come into what will amount to virtually a virtual training session, because we're talking about people from all over the country. What am I going to learn exactly, and what am I going to learn in order to pass on to other people?
So they would actually, through the virtual growth group that I would do, here's how I took it and expanded it from 10 to 100 within our local community. So we took an original group of 10 that were going to serve as trainers, and they actually stayed a few weeks ahead of their own group. So we had so much interest in it that they actually had already formed groups. But as long as they stay ahead with both their knowledge and their experience, I'm telling them what to do. I'm kind of coaching them through that as to what to do next. And then they take that into their groups and teach them what to do. But we have we have a workbook that each new member gets. And so it's really not hard on the growth group leader to facilitate, because what you're doing is just going through the workbook with your members. So each new member to the program has a downloadable PDF workbook that breaks down each key. And the reason there are 6 meetings is the first meeting is a introductory meeting where also you discuss your mindset. You go into the Ziegler aspect of it as far as helping everyone else get what they want so you can get what you want, right? But then in the second meeting, what you're doing is you're going into deepening relationships quickly. But before these meetings, they're having to answer questions from a workbook about their own business. So they print off that chapter of questions, or questions from that key from the workbook. They answer the questions about their own business, and then they bring those to the meeting, whether it be in person or virtual. They bring those to the meeting to discuss. So it could be, what are you currently doing to deepen relationships within the community? Are you using the Chamber of Commerce? What committees are you on? What events do you go to? Do you use any events outside of the Chamber of Commerce? Are you in any service organizations or any other networking groups? And it goes into who's going to keep you accountable. How are they going to keep you accountable? What are your goals in each event? All that type of stuff. So they come to the meeting with these questions answered, but in the 10 minutes that they get, I feel like I'm making my camera bounce, sorry. So within the 10 minutes that they get within the meeting, 5 minutes of those, they're sharing their responses to the workbook questions. The next 5 minutes, the rest of the group, let's say 9 other businesses, are speaking into them. They're asking questions. They're offering ideas. They may even be suggesting people that they need to know, suggesting groups that they need to join. And so it becomes where they're thinking as a group. So that's the mastermind concept, is where they're speaking into this one business. And then the reason that there are 100 minutes to divide between those is each business gets 10 minutes where the other 9 businesses speak into them. And so it actually, going through that process, it changes the culture of how they think, and they begin to take care of one another. They begin to speak into one another. They want to help each other at each event. They know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, and they know how to help them implement this process. So that's where we actually don't have to have strong leadership within chambers of commerce. You don't have to have a lot of things in place. In fact, there are some communities where we are running 3,000,000% on its own. And I'm just telling them, you need to access the chamber. You need to access these networking groups. So I've got one of my growth group leaders right now who has been twice through two semesters, 2 cycles, but he is heading to a community where I just happen to know that chamber president who's heard me speak before, but we don't know anyone else in that community. And so before this call, I just had a coaching call with him and laid out for him exactly what he needs to do, the conversation he needs to have with that chamber president, how it needs to go, what committees he needs to volunteer on, and how he needs to implement to start recruiting his own growth group there. So he's going to start the program in this community where it doesn't exist, but people are ready for it. They're hungry for personal attention and someone to tell them how to use the chamber.
Okay, that's that certainly is extremely valuable, and certainly something that we attempt to do as well in the local chamber influences group. But thing I would ask you is, all right, I'd like to be an influencer and so forth, but truly being a group leader, what's in it for me? Literally, everybody asks that question. You know that.
Right. So here is what results have told us. Okay. And this happened for me too. It wasn't about, this isn't a networking group and this isn't a referral group, right? But it does do that stuff for you. This is intended to grow your business. It grew my business by 3,000,000%, right? But it's how it's done that's different. Okay. We actually create influence within communities and markets. So what we're trying to do is grow our influence, our thought leadership, to make referral generators out of our existing and new relationships. That's our goal. And that's why you see 9 of our 3,000,000 percenters who have been nominated for leadership awards within our local chamber. And you see so many of our members gaining board positions, board presidency positions in other chambers. We've got currently 2 different board presidents in 2 different communities who have gone through the program. We had one person move to a community that didn't know a single person. It was a brand new market for her. She's an information technology company, an IT company, who is under a franchise. Okay. So it is a franchise, but it's all on her, right? And so she moves into a community, doesn't know a single person. Within 12 months, she was asked to be on the board of directors of that Chamber of Commerce because her business and influence has grown so much within 12 months.
So it's something you really can't get from any other type of program. I know that a lot of it has to do with relationship marketing. There are like 5 different areas that you emphasize. Can you go over those 5 different areas that you emphasize in the program?
Yes. Deepening relationships quickly, that is more like how to ask the right questions, how to enter these conversations, finding someone or something in common, alternating between fact-based responses and emotion-based responses, so you don't sound like you're profiling them or counseling them. And so we go through training on that aspect of it. And then we talk about elevating your profile, how to become a thought leader, how to engage versus just participate in your local community and Chamber of Commerce. We talk about becoming visible and memorable, and then how to make that go viral. In fact, I've got something to show specifically on that, Chris, but let me get through these others. Leveraging networks would be taking people that you know from the chamber platform and introducing them to a service organization platform that maybe you're already engaged in, like a Rotary or a Kiwanis or something like that. Maybe even from church, maybe even from, I don't know, anything social oriented, any social clubs or anything like that. So that's leveraging networks. Building immediate credibility comes from mentoring other businesses how to do that. When I moved to Rockwall, nobody cared who I was. Nobody cared who Nichols Wealth Management was. But when I mentored up to 20 businesses at a time as to how to implement what I was doing, those 20 businesses became where they cared a lot about who I was, and they came to me for all the answers, right? And so then I taught them how to do that, and that further elevated my profile. And so that's building immediate credibility. And then establishing community, we actually started going to dinner together. We started having our own events. We've done go-kart racing together. We've done kayaking together. We've done date nights together. We've done axe throwing together. So we built community around all of these growth groups and have it where they get to know each other a lot of times before they even rotate into a new group. But what happens is they want to be in someone else's growth group that they might just know from one of these events. They're like, wow, I want to go deep with that person. So it actually creates an undercurrent that changes the culture within a community where they are all living and acting to where they're living out that Ziegler quote, you can have everything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want in life. So they just replicate the process, but in the meantime, they're trying to recruit in new people. So for a chamber of commerce, what this does is it creates organic recruiting and retention. The interesting thing about the 9 businesses that are nominated for awards in the Rockwall Chamber is those 9 businesses have recruited over 40 businesses to the Rockwall Chamber within 12 months.
So there's a deep reason to want to be a leader, because not only do you learn, but you get recognized for what you're doing for the community, in essence, or for businesses in the community, I should say, rather, as far as it's the direction it takes. Do you find that any one particular thing keeps people interested? You mentioned that they cycle into another group. So you're saying this is not really a one and done 6-week program, that a lot of people opt to go on and continue the same process or a different process?
It's the same process, but what you're doing is you're going through the workbook again with a new set of businesses, right? So the whole purpose is to get feedback on your business from a new set of 9, if you will, but also you're trying to mentor a new set of 9 as well. So you actually build that credibility through mentorship, right? So you want to actually encourage them to go out and recruit their own growth groups if they will. A lot of times they just want to cycle into another group, which is fine. But those that become leaders, it's really kind of a leadership training program too. But let's say if you start off with an original group of 10, and if each one of those went out and recruited their own groups of 10, you would go from 10 to 100 pretty fast, right? But what that does for the original leader of the original group, it deepens their relationship with a larger group of people. It elevates their profile with a larger group of people. It creates more networks from which to leverage of people that you know. And it skyrockets your credibility and establishes a greater sense of community. So in speaking with one of your members on the program earlier, and what to do in their chamber situation, what that would do is change the culture, but it would circumvent the current centers of influence within that chamber. So if they've become too corporate or too financially minded, you kind of bring it back to, I just want to take care of people. And if I take care of people, they'll take care of me, right? And so you can actually change the culture by taking care of those other small businesses around you. I actually have a chart to share that shows how to do that. May I share the screen, Chris?
Certainly, go right ahead, please, Tim.
And do that. All right, can you see it?
Yes.
Can everyone see that?
We got it on. You're in good shape.
Okay. So you can see I've diagrammed, and a lot of times, or within the program, I discuss strategies and tactics as to how to do this stuff. So if you're the star here and you want to create influence within your organization, community, or even an event, this is how you would do that. You could actually take influence over the whole event or organization. So I broke this down to where let's just call this a happy hour event, okay? But you can apply this to chambers or even to communities or anything like that. Usually there's an existing center of influence that has become so comfortable that they don't reach out to those outside of the center of influence, right? These could be introverts, these could be new businesses, these could be anybody that is trying to grow their business, but they can't seem to break into this core group of people who know everyone, right? So these are the people who kind of already know everyone, they're comfortable, but they kind of show up because this is kind of their event, if you will. It could be their chamber, however you want to perceive that. But they get so comfortable that they forget to look outside of their circle. So if you're the rock star, how you would strategically implement the 3,000,000% process is you go into this and you begin to deepen relationships and elevate your profile and leverage your networks and build credibility and establish community. But let's start with deepening relationships. So you deepen relationships one at a time. And how I worked this is I would do it, I would go into it, I would work 20% of the room at a time. I would try to build deep relationships with 20% of the room every time I went to an event. So it could be a new set of people, but a lot of that came from the questions I asked, how I asked them. But my goal, I had a goal to schedule one-on-one appointments with those people. And that's how I held myself accountable. So my goal was 4 appointments out of each event. Now, what my goal to get out of those appointments was not a financial appointment. In fact, I did not want them pitching me on their product either. So how I would position that is say, hey, can we get together for 15 to 30 minutes to learn how to help one another grow? And they usually were agreeable to do that. And now I kept it to a shorter amount of time so that they didn't feel like they would have time to give me an hour-long pitch on whatever their product was. And I wanted to be able to have a way out if they started doing that. I even have defenses in my online course. I have a Masters of Influence online course out there within the program. By the way, those that join membership get free access to the Masters of Influence online course, which is normally $299. But in this instance, going on with this illustration, there's a way to build these relationships. There's a way to schedule those appointments, but 20% of the room is what you're going for. If you go back enough times and you go back and build deep relationships with 20% of the room every time, you begin to own the relationships outside of the existing center of influence. So when they have questions or they want to know what events to go to or how to prioritize their chamber membership, who do they go to? They don't go to the existing center of influence. They come to you, the rock star, right? They come to you with all the questions, right? So as we were discussing before this call about how some chambers have become very corporate or very financially minded, right? They're just usually worried about the membership fees and going up on those and stuff like that, right? And so what we did was we go around them and include all of these people by establishing a sense of community around that, right? So in doing that process over and over again, we deepen relationships. We elevate our profile because then they're looking to us for the answers. We've established our thought leadership. We've become visible and memorable to them. Then we leverage networks. So what we do is we take these people that we've built these relationships with, and we introduce them to the other organizations in which we're involved, right? And start helping them grow their businesses that way and giving them referrals. But it's the rule of reciprocity, the law of reciprocity. They'll start taking care of us if we take care of them too. But then we build that credibility by mentoring them as to how to do what we just did, how to grow their business, how to work that room like we just did. But it's more about the whole 3,000,000% process. If we could teach them the 3,000,000% process, then they actually become loyal referral generators for us. So that means we don't have to have this existing center of influence to continue to grow our business using this platform, right? Now, I was actually speaking at a chamber board retreat the other day, and they said, well, what about the existing center of influence? What happens to them? Well, if they see the culture changing around them, they will actually begin to step outside of this circle and come back into the crowd, right? Now, another thing, as the rock star, I was also trying to build deep relationships within the existing center of influence, because as I would mentor these businesses, they may need something from one of these existing centers of influence. Let's say it's a mayor or a city councilman or a county commissioner or a corporate CEO or anything like that. I had already built these relationships also by doing the same process as I did out here. So these people were usually either too fearful or felt, or they were just, they weren't going to the right events or something like that. But they were usually too fearful to try to schedule one-on-ones with these people inside the existing center of influence. So I kind of created a bridge of myself between the existing center of influence and those that were on the outside of that circle. But either way, these people outside of that circle were looking to me for leadership. What's interesting is the people that were inside of the circle began looking for me to help them make connections to the new people.
So
You see what I'm saying?
it's a big cycle then. The old timers suddenly realize something different is happening, and they don't want to miss out on that either, do they?
Right, right. Now, here's where the growth groups come into play, and this is why you want to be a growth group leader. Okay, so this is just an individual. The star is just you, the rock star. But imagine how we could accelerate all of this if you started bringing in people from the outside into this group that already knew, liked, and trusted you. Your growth would accelerate because then they are in here asking all of these people if they already know you. And they're offering credibility when someone doesn't know you. And they're suggesting that people meet you, right? Because you've mentored them. So what happens here is these could be existing people from the Chamber of Commerce or whatever it is, but you want to recruit people to mentor, to be in your growth group, so that you can bring them back in here and offer them something better than what they've been doing. A lot of times they're just doing social media, or they're just passing out business cards, and they're not getting any results from it. So what happens? They leave the chamber because they said it never did anything for them, or they said it never got anything out of it. So they've just been passing out business cards and making random Facebook posts trying to grow their business, but they're missing the process of how to do that. So you're the rock star to them, teaching them what to do, and then you're plugging them into this group, so you accelerate your growth exponentially. Now, where do you find these people to be in the growth group? It's best if you can pull some from the existing chamber, but actually go out and recruit people from your business community that maybe are former members of the chamber, or they don't know about the chamber. Now, why would you want to take people from the outside and plug them into the inside? Well, what I would tell people is that I know a lot of people already, but if you're looking for high level thought leaders, such as CEOs of corporations or city council people, mayor, county judge, any of those people that are in this existing center of influence, I can't provide you great access outside of this format, outside of this platform. What I can do is, if you come and join our local chamber, I can tell you which events that they will be at, and I can take you and personally introduce you. So again, that elevated my profile, and that made me the thought leader to those people. So they would actually come and join the chamber to get to know the people that I knew. On top of that, I would introduce them out here to the ones who were not in the existing centers of influence. But those people already knew, if I'd already trained them, they already knew the growth group process and the 3 million percent process, and they would actually start recruiting them into the group. The beautiful part was, after doing this for so long, Chris, is I can go and just watch them work now. Almost at any of these chambers, anywhere it's organically grown, anybody who's ever been in a growth group, I actually can sit back and watch them work, and they tactically, and strategically implement, and it's just awesome to watch the growth happen.
It's very satisfying, isn't it, Tim?
It is. It is.
Now, what? And continue if you need, but how does someone get involved here? You and I have talked about this. In fact, for well before the first of the year, and I know we have a lot of people in our group that can benefit from this program. But this, in fact, by becoming leaders in a leadership training program about the 3,000,000%, and then reach out beyond in their community and get it implemented themselves. So how does someone get involved in this, Tim?
So they would actually go to, you have a link there that you could provide, and they would go to the access.thriugh.com link, and it actually, you'll provide it in the comments, I hope. You're on mute. Chris, you're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's in the comments now. I have had your link.
Okay. Okay. So there's a link there for you to sign up and join the program. The growth group membership, the growth group is the basic membership to the program, and it is $49 a month. Okay. Now, there are some of our members who have been in the program for the 2 years that we've had it, right? The 2 years that we've been doing that. And so they still want people to speak back into their businesses, even though they're implementing the process within the growth groups. It's very effective for them to grow their business, but because they've done it so long and they've recruited so many new businesses within the program, they feel like, hey, I still need somebody to call me out on what I'm doing wrong or what I could do better within the group. So what we did was it created the Inner Circle program. So we have the bronze inner circle, silver, gold, platinum. And so those are higher level groups that act more like masterminds, and they just operate completely different than the growth groups. So I'm explaining that so that when you go to the link and you see the difference between inner circle and growth group, to start, you want to do growth groups. And what we do is we can help you match make, and you actually have an affiliate type program as well. And so you would get the affiliate link when you sign up. But that is the link that these growth group leaders are going to want to use on their local levels to recruit people with their own link, right? So they'll be compensated for their time and effort they're putting into this as well.
And you'll be training them on how to recruit a group for their first group, right? You have a
Yes.
program in mind.
Yes.
For that. Okay.
I will do that.
Yeah. So
in fact, that should probably be the first training that we do, right?
Yes. I know you do. Absolutely. But I also know that we are planning to start a leadership training program for everyone that is in the scope of this particular area of our group. And I know that's going to be coming in the next couple of weeks. We haven't set a date yet, but I know within the next week and a half to 2 weeks, we're going to start a training program just for group leaders in their community. Tell us a little bit about how that will work, Tim.
Okay, we'll have to do it virtually at first, and you would be in a growth group, a virtual growth group of other leaders. Okay, so to maintain the time structure, we're probably going to limit each group to 10 businesses. And so if we had 15 sign up, it would be wise of us to split it up into a group of 8 and a group of 7. Okay. so that we have more time to discuss within the time frames of each growth group meeting. Okay, but I'm going to treat you as if you're in my growth group. And what you're going to do as growth group leaders is you're going to take and emulate what we've done within your local communities. But also, I'm going to teach you how to do what we do. We will establish a Facebook group where we can continue the conversation and discuss with each other outside of the meetings. I do encourage one-on-ones with each other virtually. That would be scheduled one-on-one time with each other later, outside of the 2-hour meeting. But what that does is it emulates what you would be doing on a local level. So as long as you're a week or two ahead of your own growth groups, you get to actually remember what we just did, remember how the meeting was facilitated, how the questions went, stuff like that. And you actually it's easier for you to do it that way than for me to just make a video and tell you. All right, you're on mute again, Chris.
I do that not to interfere, and then when I need it, I don't have it on. All right. Actually, Carl brought this to my attention. I'm looking at the membership site, which the link I put in leads to. Now, can you put that on the screen and kind of just show people where to sign up?
So you have to click on the Learn More button, and that once you go from the Learn More, you'll see the subscribe button on the next page, but you could scroll down and see the different groups, like growth group or bronze inner circle, silver inner circle, all of those. It'll have descriptions.
Okay, and that's all. I'll do it again.
So you just click on Learn More on the first page, and then it'll take you to a new page where the first button would be subscribe, but you could scroll down and see what you're subscribing to.
Right. Okay. I see that.
But everyone has to be a member before they can be a growth group leader. And it's going to be the same way when you're recruiting groups. So I don't want people that, even locally here, we don't allow people who are not members of the growth groups to attend the growth groups. Here's why. Because if we're doing this correctly and we are showing the vulnerability that we need to within each group to make people want to share, then a lot of times they're going to share things that could affect their business in the local community, or it could affect them personally. I've seen it where there's a difference between an entrepreneurial mindset and an employee mindset. And sometimes, like I was in a meeting the other day, and one of our franchise owners had said that she felt like she was just trying out the growth group. That's what she said, but she was already a member. This is her first time doing it. But she said, I have no one else to talk to about the struggles that I go through as a business owner. She said that her husband has been an employee his whole career, and her children have been employees their whole careers. She actually got laid off from an employee job and had to buy a franchise because of her age, right? And so she wanted to continue a business. And now she felt like she has no one to talk to about the struggles that she faces.
So
and that's a lot of what the group does.
So within the group, there's a lot of kind of personal discussions that
Correct.
That actually a bonding aspect to it, isn't it? When people share something personal, then you bond even closer as a group. And I can imagine the 9 people or the 8 people, whichever, that finish out, they're very close to each other by the time they get done.
Well, and a lot of times, let's say some businesses don't get it, right? Let's say they're going through the growth group and you have some attrition because let's say a real estate agent got so caught up with showings or something like that, they thought, you know what, that's not really doing anything for me. And so they just quit coming to the growth group meetings. So you might have some of that, and you may end up at the sixth meeting with only 5 people there, and you started with 10. That's okay. Actually, the fewer people that you have come to the meeting, the deeper it goes, right? So I encourage my growth group leaders here locally, don't be discouraged when people don't show up. It's not your fault. It's something that they're working through in their own business, in their own personal lives. But I've actually had it where, since I'm using real estate agents as an example, I was sitting in on a growth group the other day in the heart of Dallas, and it came time for a real estate agent to share. Her 10 minutes was going on, and without even going into the questions in the workbook, she said, "I'm struggling in my marriage, and I think I might be getting a divorce." Now you say, "Well, that sounds really personal, Tim. Why would anybody share that?" It's because it is killing her business. It is killing her heart set and her mindset, and she can't operate because she has so much pressure on her from a personal standpoint. So it becomes crucial for the group to be able to say, "Hey, you know what? We understand." They might start asking questions, how they could help, offering ideas, offering groups, offering counseling, or just offering to go to lunch with her, something like that. But to her, that was the only group she felt comfortable sharing that with.
Now, that's very understandable. Now, just to put a cap on it for our session today, we are planning to get together and do a leadership training soon. And I'm sure that between now and then, we'll have another brief chat for the group to listen to. And other than that, what would you like to say to everybody before we close out here today?
I would encourage you to go sign up for the membership, because I'm offering the membership. I'm offering the Masters of Influence online course for free for anybody that signs up on the membership. And, I have the book out, Chris, the 3 million% book. I mean, you see the cover behind me. But the online course is so much more in depth than what I could have ever done in the book, that it's ridiculous. I've had people go through the program that have been through 6 times. They've been through the program 6 times, and then they took the online course, and we're like, "Why didn't you tell us any of this before?" And I'm like, "I couldn't. There was not a way for me to tell you." So even if you didn't really get involved in the groups or anything like that, it's worth it just to have the online course, because that teaches you the strategies and tactics and all that stuff that I briefly discussed. But I just encourage you, the influence is the big thing. This grows your influence within your market and within your community. This isn't about how many referrals you get or how many networking business cards you get or anything like that. This grows influence, and it's highly effective.
Well, I can say for a fact, of course, that I have the workbook. I tried to show it, but it's a little hard to with the screen I'm using. But it's an entire. You're not going to jump out there solo, because there are complete materials available. Not the least of which is, if you go to Amazon and look for 3 million%, you will see his book on Amazon, which, by the way, I ordered even before I met Tim Nichols. So I would urge everyone to get involved here. And again, we're going to be talking about this quite a bit over the next couple of weeks, and then we're going to end that with a training session. So, Tim, thank you for being with us today and taking the time to share the 3 million% concept with us.
Thank you, Chris. I greatly appreciate you having me. We look forward to seeing everyone in the growth groups.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. And everyone, remember, weekly at 3 o'clock, and as long as I've got a good personal assistant taking care of me, then it's always at 3 o'clock on the Wednesday afternoons. And I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday for some more training for the local Chamber Influencers Group. Take care. Bye-bye.